Thank you again for being here. I'm excited for another session. And we've been having these conversations with real folks about where they are in life, some of the things that they've learned. And I'm excited about this guest today. And I think a lot of you will relate to maybe not this specific of his journey, but some of the insights that he has to share with us, and how you go through change, how do you adapt, and how do you even get better along the way. I'll have him introduce himself as we get up and going.
So starting off, my name is Mario McNaughton. I'm a assistant vice president at Citi. I'm in the area of finance with a focus on automation and process improvement. I've been working at Citi for about 9 years, but I moved to Costa Rica in January 2022. And this was a big shift, both professionally and personally. On paper, I came here for a new regional role at Citi. What I didn't realize was that so much of the experience would challenge and shape me. You know, Costa Rica's culture is deeply rooted in this pura vida lifestyle. It's slower, more intentional. And honestly, at first it was frustrating. Coming from Jamaica's fast-paced grind, especially pre-COVID, it felt like everything here moved in slow motion. Then there was the language barrier. I had to learn to speak Spanish from scratch, not in a classroom, but in real life. Ordering food, visiting the doctor, speaking at work. It forced me to get uncomfortable really, really quickly. But that's what made it valuable. I realized that when you step outside of your comfort zone, you learn more about yourself and what you're capable of. And that's the heart of adaptability. It's not just surviving a change, it's letting the change improve you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, oh man, so much there. I didn't realize you've been there for 9 years. When as you were saying that, the thing that comes up to me is this idea of like being in a place for so long, but still finding ways to be challenging yourself. And like when I think about someone working in the same place, especially someone as young as us for 9 years, I'm like, oh man, he must have been bored. But um, the idea that you're sharing is that there's an opportunity to get outside your comfort zone, even though you're in the same place. But we can like truly make ourselves uncomfortable and learn. And with that, man, like Costa Rica, talk to me about why the move. You already shared a little bit, but I'd be curious about what was going on during that time. And even some more specific stuff, like when it actually happened, like how you're feeling, how do you even handle it?
Okay, so, I started out in Jamaica. I was in Jamaica for about 5 years working in City. But the thing was, the, the bank in Jamaica was a lot smaller. So there's a lot less room for growth. And I pretty much got to a point where I hit a ceiling. And,
Mhm.
as a young person, ambitious, that can be frustrating. So I knew that it was, a move was essential. I actually qualified for a program called the FMA program, which is the Financial Management Associate. Pretty much they find the top performers in finance across the world. I think when I was participating, it was about 150 participants. And I got to the top 10 in the process, but I was unsuccessful, and this is all a part of adapting as well, because obviously life comes disappointment, right?
Yeah.
Um, and a few months after, this opportunity to come to the regional office in Costa Rica came up, and it just sounded perfect for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, let's be honest, man, like very few people are top 10 in the world in anything. Let's not take for granted. So I think it sounds like there was already this drive for more. And this now gave you an opportunity to like say like, okay, I feel like I've done all that I can where I am. I think a lot of people can relate to that, where it's like, okay, you feel like you've hit your ceiling. You feel like there's more, and now this opportunity comes up. What were some of the things that you were important to you as you made this choice? Was it just generally wanting a change? Was it more money? Was it, like you had been to Costa Rica before and you wanted to like enjoy the pure Vita life?
Honestly, no. It was my first when I moved here for work. It was the first time in Costa Rica. I didn't even visit before to check the place out. I just ripped the band-aid off, and I said, time to make a move.
Yeah.
What really drove it was just it's ambition, right? So you
Mhm,
really want to maximize, your career growth, especially when you're young. Um, and I feel like hitting a ceiling. I wasn't even 30 yet. That was tough. That was tough
mhm,
because I feel like you start losing your sense of purpose. You need to be challenged. I believe in being challenged 100%. Feel like that's how you grow, and that's how you feel a sense of accomplishment, and in some sense a sense of peace for me, right?
mhm.
So that was really the driver to make the move.
Yeah, yeah. That's oh, yeah, like, the idea of maximizing career. Talk to me about now that you landed, you've never been to this place before, you might have taken a couple years of Spanish in high school, as we all did. Um, man, like, did you have support? How did you start to learn the language? Um, talk about those first 90 days.
Okay, I'll do one better. I'll give you the first day. I'll never forget the first day. I got here, got to apartment, um, need to buy some groceries. So I went to the mall, I took an Uber, went to the mall, I went to the supermarket, and all that Spanish that I learned over the years went through the window. When I say I had a borderline panic attack in the supermarket, I couldn't differentiate between shampoo and conditioner, nothing. Like maybe I don't need it right now, but no, but honestly, it was kind of traumatizing the first night. So I just
Mm,
bought some eggs, some water. That was it. Some bread. That was it. Well, so I went back again the next day, and it just took
mm,
understanding that I'm not in my comfort zone and just looking towards a future where you look back and say, you know what, this was a great experience. Let me just go down and make the best of it.
yeah, yeah. I it there's something there, and I'm sure we're gonna hear more about it, but, like, you almost had a mindset that, like, this is a challenge and you're up for it versus and I don't know, maybe, like, I know people who go to a different country, go to start a new job, and it's like the yearning to go back home is stronger, or the yearning to go back to a place that they were comfortable in is stronger than the yearning to, like, see all that they could be. And it sounded like your yearning to accomplish this thing was way stronger than, like, just, like, the idea of, like, going back to where you came from and not achieving all that you could be almost was like you almost like you're allergic to that.
Yeah, basically, basically,
Yeah.
kind of ties into my whole mindset, right? Just being adaptable.
Mhm.
I believe like adaptability is survival, you know.
Yeah.
And what I was here and I started reflecting on what's happening in my life, all the changes. I started to realize that this isn't just a personal lesson. This is the world right now. Things
Mm.
are changing fast, especially this is like right mid or post COVID,
Yeah.
so talking about we're seeing AI, we're seeing the whole remote work, set of how people consume, how they live, how they work, everything is just changing. So,
Yeah.
you know, and at this point, it wasn't even change. It's like we're dealing with constant acceleration. Like we're in
Yes.
an environment where if you're not evolving, you're falling behind.
Yeah.
Comfort feels good, but it can become a trap. You
Yeah.
think you're
Yeah.
doing fine until suddenly you're not relevant anymore, especially in workspace. The world is
Yeah.
moving forward with or without you. So it's your
Yeah.
choice.
Interesting. And one of the things that we're not talking about, but it's like I think we use the word adaptability. I am curious about the word resilience, if that means anything to you.
Um, Resilience, I think they go hand in hand because as we said earlier, as with change, it's gonna come disappointment sometimes.
Yeah.
It's gonna come difficult times. Sometimes you just want to give up, but you have to push through, man. You have to push
Yeah.
through.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
You have to. No, and then you're right. Like we joke off like if you think about going back to 2020 things now, so much has happened in
Yeah.
in the last 5 years that it feels like there's this acceleration. And what you're seeing, and I'm sure like folks like yourself, it's not it's like the people who can ride that wave. Like it's the people who can say like we know that the only constant is change, and so instead of trying to like resist the change? How could we use that for like, for us to evolve? Like, and you talk about globally, but it's like, that's what evolution is. It's like, we only are here because the ones that survive that evolution, the ones that survive the change, not the one that remain the same. Which leads me to this idea of like, I know you have some good thoughts around disruption and what that does look like for the future of work. I'd love to hear how you're thinking about that in your company and your team, or just like overall for yourself.
Yeah. Okay. So I go back to 2019. This is like right before COVID. I started to get interest in the whole process improvement, AI, automation, all these stuff, right? So a friend of mine recommended a book. It was called Prediction Machine, and it
Okay.
spoke about the importance of staying current. You know, it broke down how AI is going to reshape decision making and value creation. And it gave several powerful examples, but
Yeah.
one really stuck with me, and it was a story about Uber. Right. So back in the day, taxi drivers had this advantage, years of experience, deep knowledge of the city, peak hours, traffic, pricing strategies. So that took time to master. And then all of a sudden, Uber comes along. Suddenly, a new driver with zero experience can outperform a seasoned pro just by
Yeah.
following real-time data and AI-powered navigation. You know,
Mhm.
so that's disruption.
Yeah.
And then, take it to right now, 2025, we're in a world right now where you have people like Elon Musk. He has Tesla, and he's talking about building a future where you can own a Tesla, sign up for this program, and your car can literally drive itself as a robot taxi, earning you money while you sleep. And that's not hypothetical. That's real. And that's where we're headed. That's going on
Yeah.
right now, you know? And, you think about the effects of not adapting, you know,
Mhm.
you don't have to imagine them. We see them every day. Like, I don't know about where you are, but I know like in Costa Rica, for example, I rarely see a regular taxi. The only place I see the taxis are at the airport because they're trying to, convince first time travelers to take
Yeah.
what's the safer option. And then the
Yeah.
tourist gets to their hotel or wherever, and then they found out that they just paid $50 for a $20 Uber ride, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what is the taxi isn't doing anything illegal, but just based on not evolving, what they're offering is now starting to feel like a scam just
Yeah.
because it's misaligned with what the consumers now expect,
Mm.
right? And that's what's going to happen when you resist change. You go from being trusted to being
Yeah.
perceived as outdated and overpriced. And
Yeah.
that's dangerous in this world.
Yeah. 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 There's so much there, man. And so, as we're even thinking about AI, is there a framework or a way to start to think about, um, what the future might look like, or how we should even approach, like, like you use that taxi analogy, and I'm thinking about it. You're so right. Like, what is probably the norm for them feels like a scam because they haven't progressed in their mindset. Are there any things that you're starting to think about of like, if you're in danger of having your work disrupted, like how should you even start to think about this type of stuff?
The way I would look at that is that change is happening whether you want it to or not. Um, I would suggest look at your job, become an SME, you know, and find ways to improve it, find ways to learn. It's like the whole Kaizen mindset, that Japanese concept with continuous
Yeah.
improvement, small changes. You don't need to overhaul your life in one go, but just make
Mhm.
small changes, improve one thing, take one course, learn one word in Spanish, um, that's the approach. That I believe is
Yeah.
the approach.
Yeah. No, I think there's something there where it's this idea of like, this is how we've always done things. And that's when we hear people coming in and trying to make changes in the government, or that there's this idea that if you sit down, I think this is how we've always done things, like eventually things are going to catch up to you. Um, I work in like call center, like we have technology for that. And a lot of times when we talk to people, they're like, they're not in tune with the customer expectations, right? So if you and I text or WhatsApp, why is it that I can go to this business or my bank and use certain like forms of the same forms of communication? So it's like my
Yeah.
expectation is that I could email, or if I need to sign a doc, why do I need to go in and like actually physical paper? Why can't I use when e-signature came out, why you were still requiring me to print, you know? And so one of the things is I think a lot of people are not understanding, like, whether your business, you're not understanding what does the customer expect? But then just in your personal life, whether you're a taxi driver and you are actually the business owner at that point, or we're seeing AI come about, like, what is, I'm always concerned to people like, why aren't you curious? So as you said, like, maybe just read one article, maybe learn one skill. It's just like, like the idea of people talk about like being AI literacy. I think a lot of people are always like, oh, wait, like, that's not for me, or I'm too old. And what we're realizing is that actually no, because you could be 45 and think you've done your entire career, and like your job might be in yeah, beyond the line for this.
Right, right.
Well, I'm curious for you around like how you setting up having a community that helps, because I can't imagine just like if folks are by themselves, sometimes it's not as good. I'd imagine having a community helps to like like-minded people help you along the way. Is this something that you have? Have you thought about this, or you're saying that doesn't really matter?
No, it definitely matters. Definitely matters. Community is very important. Um, and like over time, you develop it. So what I did to kind of create my own community, I like to play with algorithms. So like
Mhm.
Instagram, LinkedIn, I'll research pros in the area. For example,
Mhm.
like I follow Ali Miller. She's really great with AI. She's always posting some interesting stuff, you know,
Yeah,
prompts. So like I'll follow these people and they kind of become my virtual mentors or,
yeah,
or
yeah,
so
yeah.
that's kind of approach to that.
I like I like that because people think of mentors and community as just, what's around you. And there's this thing where depending on where you are, you might not have that. But one of the great things that the internet does afford you is that you can be a part of a global digital community. And there's a lot of people that's already doing the work. And the first thing I wrote here is like following your curiosity, right? And I think that is something where I always say, like, what are you geeking out about? Like, if you could, I joke about if you could give a TED talk, what would that be about? And it's this idea of like, it's okay to be intrinsically motivated and pursue something. Um, and then you had mentioned even the fact that like it's so funny, like you said, hey, a friend recommended this book and you read it. I don't know you realize how big that is, where a lot of people are recommended a lot of books, but they never they never go out and read it or do the things. It's like more talk than walk. And I'm curious, like, if there are any other examples in your life or work, or you're thinking about like how do you continually get better every day? I'm curious about that.
Um, you know, when it comes to work, I don't believe in, recreating the wheel. For example, I have interest in processing improvement, automation, and I like to look at it as look at the bigger picture. What do I want this process to look like? What do I want it to feel like? Like for me, a good example is the iPhone. Coincidentally, like I have implemented a mindset of I was greatly influenced by Steve Jobs, for
Yeah,
example. You know, he didn't just create functional products; he created experiences. Because
mhm,
people have this argument, the camera on the Samsung is better, the this, the that. But I can tell you why I think iPhone will continue to be successful is just the ease of use. It makes the user experience very pleasant, and
yeah,
that's the approach I take with my projects. For example, we talk about the journey, the pivoting, the this, the that. Luckily I've been in the bank from the grown up. I've
yeah,
been in finance from the grown up. I've been the maker, preparing the reports, cleaning data, chasing numbers. I've been the
yeah,
reviewer, reviewing variances, reconciling errors, signing off under pressure. So when I build solutions, I design for both. So for the
mhm,
maker, I'll make the process smooth, fast, less repetitive. But for the reviewer, I'll build more clarity, validations,
yeah,
visibility. So approvals can happen faster with added controls, right? So, true innovation isn't just about automation, for example. It's about reducing friction,
mhm,
increasing value for everybody who touches the process.
yeah.
So that's how I do my thing.
Yeah. I really do like that. And I think there's a lot of people who are scared of AI and are scared of automation. But what you're saying is, let's think about the end result and what we're trying to achieve, or what everyone's trying to achieve, right? Like we hear, about BPOs, and like people are always like, oh, AI is coming for BPO agents, right? Like call center agents, and it's like, yeah, I know. But if you go back to the drawing board and say, what was the experience that that company was trying to have with their clients? And if it's a have a great experience, there's might be a it might be that AI might be the better experience there. And so I think more we go back, I think that's one of the people what they call the first principle of going back to first principle, understanding whatever we're trying to achieve. And like you're saying, the good thing about you, and where I think some people fall short and that you have over others, that you've gone through and seen different places, and you're thinking about, it's true systems thinking, right? It's not just one sided thinking about A. You're saying if A, B, and C interacts, you're truly understanding what are the three pieces, how they interact. If you change one, how does it affect the other? Because when at the end of the day, your goal is to like make the whole better. And so if you want to make the whole better, you have to think about those different things. So lots there. Um,
For sure.
as we're wrapping up, so much here, man. Might even have to have a part two. I'm curious, any advice for folks, as like we sign off today?
Um, well, if there's one thing I'd want people to take from this conversation, it's, you don't need to be fearless. You just need to be willing to move forward. Start with
Mhm.
one step, learn one thing, improve one habit. As I mentioned, habits, another good book, Atomic Habits, that's amazing, great, great book. And
Yeah.
just remember, you're not in competition with anyone, just the version of yourself that refuses to evolve. You know, Comfort is the enemy of growth. And in this world, you're either adapting or preparing to be replaced.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, that's so good. Folks, there's so much here. I'm just thinking about like some of the conversations I've had over the last couple of weeks where people are afraid of starting over. And I think this is a timely conversation of how do you start over? How do you even think about growth? And the idea that like you just it is you can't stay the same. If you look at evolution, it's the folks that stay the same. They're not here today. Someone had to move. Someone had to leave the Saharan desert. Like it's the folks that adapted and changed. It's candidly, it's like it's the reason why our species are still here. Mario, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much, man. This has been great.
Amen. Thank you for having me.